Hello, back again today. I'm gonna do this and like two other videos today so I can be done for the week, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just work more so on my other vlog because I haven't released any videos for that yet, but you know, it is on the way. Today's don't do this. Okay, so the genre for this is gonna be geek culture rants yet again. I was gonna try to do these in pairs, so I'm gonna always wind up doing two videos, and it's gonna be geek culture rants paired with regular culture rants, so we can always be even. Let's see, this is just shut up Facebook. This is shut up phone. This is this is gonna be fun. I always find this hilarious. Wait, what? That's a better way to phrase that. This is gonna be fun because, and basically to sum this up, I can't talk. To sum this up, deals. Let's see. I can sum this up because. So it really comes down to that, and I love how I have a specific section for that, but I'm gonna leave that right. Oh no, I'm gonna leave that right there, and it takes forever to do this. The basics, you know. Well, there you go. I can put that right there. Yeah, you're gonna watch me spend like 20 minutes just like, where am I gonna type stuff? This is an issue that needs to be solved. So. But before I get into that really well, let's see. I got way too many things to know. No. Let's see this one. I already know. Before I get started with this topic, also would like to mention that every 6 videos, I'm just going to do a personal vlog that's just me doing stuff. I'm just going to talk about things that are happening to me and probably try to have something more visually appealing than just a Word document in this amazing awesomeness. But yeah, otherwise I'm gonna just try to do 6 videos, do a vlog, a personal life vlog, and then go another 6 videos and just continue in that pattern. Whenever I do that, like with the personal vlogs, that's the best time to suggest, make suggestions on how to improve the channel, how to improve my videos, make suggestions of, also, you know, what software and what tools to use for recording stuff. Make, you know, feedback on episodes. You can, that's another place that offer general opinions or suggestions for different topics to cover. But you know, I decided I'm going to do that because it'd be good just to have a regular vlog. And that's the best time to cover my personal convention crap. This is a fun issue to me because it really needs, like, the basic is, like, reverse racism is bullshit. It's not that hard of a thing to convince people. Like, there's too many white people that I know that would totally, like, I don't have to say anything. They already call bullshit the whole thing. It's like, it's dumb. It doesn't exist. Because racism, as far as America's concerned, keep this in mind when I'm talking. As far as America's concerned, you gotta keep that in mind, because when you start playing the. Well, what about this country game? Everything is unnecessarily complicated. Oh, I saved that one. I didn't need to. Whatever. As far as reverse racism is concerned, when it comes to America, there's a history behind racism. Like, when you look at blacks and blacks experiencing racism, there's a whole history of oppression, repression, identity crisis within the black community from all the things that happen to it. And then there's always with the black community, the issue of, like, identity crisis between, like, you know, what's considered being quote unquote being white. But again, that's getting a little bit too off topic. Not really, but too off topic for this. But there's the history of, like, you know, what blacks have gone through throughout the history of this country, and how white people led to white people the reason why they experienced that in the first place. And that's really with any culture ever. Like, racism, there's a history that's implied behind there. And I'm not saying white people. I'm gonna do a bunch of disclaimers because I know some white person is probably gonna look at that, but oh, it's another black person ranting about racism. Who cares? Which is bullshit, racism and stuff, whatever. White people experience racism too, but the more like hurtful, like life-altering and like really negative experiences of racism, as far as America is concerned, again, people of color have more experiences with that. Of course, in America, it's a situation like you're never really gonna have. I mean, the logic is you're never gonna. Racism inconveniences you a little bit at worst. It's not something like, oh my god, I didn't get a job because I'm white. I didn't get accepted to any colleges at all. Which honestly is a hard feat in and of itself, like regardless of color, because I'm white. I didn't exert, you know, trepidation here because I'm white. You really don't have that. There's more situations, especially when we look at, you know, civil rights movement, what blacks have gone through with whites, like, you know, segregation period of America, like, you know, blacks can go through the same doors as whites. Blacks got everything secondhand. Blacks just got far inferior quality products versus the whites just because they're blacks. Like, as a white person, you really don't have the history to be like, well, I was really oppressed as a white person and stuff. Like, you don't really have that background. And all this and all the many reasons of why reverse racism is the dumbest bull that can ever be uttered by anybody. I believe one of the, when I was still in college, one of the things that came up was this white girl didn't get accepted to her top college of choice. She got accepted to college, but not her top college that she wanted to go into. And she basically wanted to overturn the whole affirmative action and all the laws of, enacted because of affirmative action because she didn't get accepted to her top college because she's white. Like, really late, you didn't get to your top choice, therefore affirmative action, even though it's one of those deals where it's like, you can say what you want about affirmative action. If you got rid of affirmative action, if it wasn't for that from the get-go, schools wouldn't be integrated at all. They only became integrated after something like affirmative action was put in place. Nowadays, if you were to remove affirmative action, although it wouldn't be instantaneous, over time, colleges would gradually go back to a more predominant, they would become more segregated, more so than what some colleges are already, because now colleges don't have to accept people of color. I mean, there's always a problem with the quota system where it's like, oh, well, we have to have so many blacks, so many Latinos, so many Asians, so let's just accept like the first X amount for that because we need that. There's always a problem with that because it's like, even though you might have a quota system with a particular race, you accept the best and brightest from that race as a college. You don't just accept any Tom, Dick, or Harry because they're black and you need to fulfill that quota. Like, that's the problem in and of itself. That's not the right way to use that system. But that's really off the beaten path. But really, to understand why I think this is bullshit, you have to understand the whole issue of why reverse racism is crap. And really, the best way to sum up why reverse racism is crap is because racism for... Okay. Colors. No, I say especially blacks to keep it simple because I am black, so black. I'm more in tune with that issue more so than anything else. Like, I couldn't speak personally based off what Latinos are experiencing. I'm not Latino. Doesn't mean I can't technically comment on the issue, but from a personal standpoint, I can't because I'm not Latino. Doesn't mean I can't talk about it, but it means I can't speak off personal experiences because of I am that race. That's all I'm saying. Not that it's impossible, but anyway, yeah, reverse racism is crap. As whites, you don't have that same negative as far as America's racial issues are concerned. You don't have the same background, so you really can't even pretend like, man, I really understand the struggles of experienced racism. No, you don't, because you're white. It's a little thing called white. All the freaking bullet points. Little thing called white privilege. Did I spell? No, white privilege slash invisible privilege. Invisible privilege exists namely for white privilege, but invisible privilege is, to me, is more a generic. Like, it can really refer to anybody who has privilege that doesn't understand it. If you paid attention to social studies class, this should sound familiar to you. You can literally go look up white privilege or invisible privilege on Wikipedia to make it easier for you. That article sums it up nicely to give real viewpoint about this, because reverse racism, all that pretty much goes back to this white privilege issue of like, oh, or it's something that it's more of like a new age issue that falls under white privilege, because it's just a bullshit logic in general, where it's like, you think because you're white you go through so much, you went through, not because you're white, but that your experiences with racism would equate to a person of color, but it really doesn't. It's a mild inconvenience at best. So again, well, wrong place. Racism. Of course, I'm really just doing all this just to set up where I'm coming from. That's the main thing. But you know, that being said, like usual, have to do this move, which is backspace. Disclaimers. Let's just deal with all the things that I'm pretty sure, all the things I've dealt with due to social networking bullshit drama. So I don't think all whites are racist, because I mean, if there's ever something, a BS issue that's come up from a white person who allegedly is not racist, it's the whole issue of like, oh, because I made this one comment, like, oh, you think all whites are racist. I don't think all whites are racist. That doesn't make sense. I don't think all whites are racist. I don't think that whites don't experience racism. Of course, I'm gonna get back to the main topic at hand. I'm gonna actually just do this to be more annoying. Differentiates a lot of purple. I don't think all whites experience racism. It's just what's the better way for it? Not it's just not as, let's say, devastating, even though that word's too strong for what I mean. It's just not as devastating as what. As what? It's just not devastating as what people of color experience. Like, what a white cosplayer's experience with racism is going to be nowhere near as bad. I'm going based on all the stories I heard, and quite frankly, it just is what it is. A white cosplayer's experience is never going to be as negative as like a black person's experience with racism and cosplay. It just isn't, because. And there's a whole logic I'm using for that really sums up that whole issue nicely. But what is it? I don't think all whites are racist. I don't think whites. Oh wait, I don't think white. I don't think. Wow, I don't think that whites. I don't think that whites don't experience racism. It's not as devastating. What else? I did that wrong. I'm gonna ignore myself, my own grammar. Blah. Blah, blah. I'm gonna leave it right there right now. The main thing to take from this, though, is like, I don't think all whites are. I don't think all whites are racist. And I don't think every white person. Because I'm doing this first to set it up before actually, you know, covering the issue. But anyway, main issue is cosplay. It's a cosplay issue. I'm gonna have several rants about cosplay issues, because I mean, there's a lot of things in the cosplay community that really annoy the crap out of me. But you know, whatever. Because I'm one of those types, like, I'm kind of becoming jaded with the cosplay community, because there's so many dumb BS things that are happening that shouldn't be happening, because it's just people. I feel like the main reason it's because cosplay is becoming so mainstream now that there's all these issues that didn't exist prior. Like, for example, like if you cosplay 90s or earlier, they're existing now because, well, it's more popular and there's now more bullshit that's happening that would have happened. It wouldn't have happened before when it was less popular. So basically, the point here really is when white people complain about racism as if because their experience wasn't that big of their experience wasn't so bad that I can't type wasn't that bad. It isn't really a big deal. I know I just did that. It isn't really a big, yeah. So is that mentality? Like, well, I experienced racism. Like, I cosplay Korra, and I got comments about it. And it wasn't that big of a deal. Or just in general, like, you know, I experienced perspectives. I do this thing a lot where I'll just suddenly go into the perspective of like another perspective, but I don't necessarily give any signs I'm doing that, and then I just assume people know what I'm talking about. But I need to stop doing that. I can't assume people know where I'm coming from. It causes problems. Because let's see. Etc. I'm gonna just. And the other thing I have a problem with, well, a white person experiencing racism as a cosplayer, and then of course it goes back to the deal of the issue of it goes back to that, but I mean that to me isn't as big of a deal to me as this mentality where, oh well, I experienced racism in cosplay too, but it wasn't that bad of an experience, so I understand the deal. Well, of course you don't think it's that big of a deal. You're white. You really won't get the real short end of the stick when it comes to experiencing racism within cosplay community. I mean, let's be perfectly honest here. When you go convention culture, let's stick with anime and gaming convention culture because you definitely see cosplay here a lot, and those are the conventions I'm involved with the most. So I'm gonna stick with those two genres of conventions. Anime conventions and video game conventions are primarily white people. It's primarily a white thing. You go to any convention, you're going to see hundreds and hundreds of white faces, and of course you'll see the occasional spots of color, but it's mostly whites. And by extension, the cosplay community in America is predominantly white. I'm not saying this to be a douchebag, like, that's just, that is what it is. I'm not making any good or bad comments about that. That's just an observation that's totally freaking true. So by definition, I mean by extension of this other extension, as a white cosplayer, your experiences with racism is never going to be as bad as a person of color, because really, like, well, at the worst, it's other white people making comments about another white like, it's not, I mean, only within the cosplay community you have to deal with these dumb idiots who have never felt the touch of a woman, who, oh, what are you doing? Who would do this crap where it's like, you know, oh, Asians are the best cosplayers. Like, what? Only in the cosplay community will you have to deal with stupidity this ridiculous. But really, it's like, it's predominantly, I feel like whenever white people get crap about cosplaying non-white characters, it's really from people of color complaining that they're cosplaying a character that's not white. And I would assume the logic behind that is you have so many characters that you could cosplay that are white. Why are you cosplaying a character that's not white? I mean, as a person of color, we already have very, very, very limited options of who we can cosplay that's actually the same color as we are, let alone a white person just making the choice like, I'm going to cosplay somebody outside my race when we have so many options. Like, it's still a BS logic, but to me, it makes as a tad, just a very minute bit more reasonable than like crap that you'll get from white people reasoning for why a black person can't cosplay this white character. Like, there's always that underlying current of like, well, people of color can't be good like blacks can't be good cosplayers. There's always that underlying current. There's also the issue of like, this this logic that, you know, because there's quote unquote so many characters of cosplay, or so many characters of color to cosplay, why don't blacks just cosplay, or any people of color? Of course, I'm black, so I'm gonna speak mostly about blacks. Why don't blacks just cosplay you know, other black characters? Like, well, dumbass, there's not that many people of color to cosplay. As a person of color, you don't really have that many options. You're gonna run into the issue, like, you're gonna have to inevitably cosplay a character who isn't of the same color. I mean, and when you look at the characters of color to cosplay from, there really aren't that many that are all that interesting, or that you would want to cosplay anyway. Like, yeah, you got your Rishi, but it's like, really, there's only a handful of black characters that I would want to cosplay, because I actually like that character. Like, really, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's more insidious with what people of color go through with experience with racism and cosplay than what whites go through. It's a mild inconvenience at best, and I just get sick of hearing it, because it's not that big. It isn't that negative experience for a white person as what it would be for a person of color. And on another note, let's see, we'll put this in comments. Another note, panelist perspective. I love it when people when I go to panels, because of course I'm a panelist, and I saw somebody make this mistake. I also see this mistake that white people make, where it's like, to put simply, when a white person speaks about racism in cosplay from really the perspective of a person of color, because, I mean, let's face facts here, white people really don't experience it all that badly. Like I said like a billion times now. There's always this thin line to cross. Like, to be perfectly honest, it's really easy to cross the line and make a racist statement that completely contradicts what you said prior to that. But at the same time, it's easy not to make a racist statement. Like, as a white person commenting on the matter, all you really need to say is this. Judge the... And you're gonna be annoyed. You judge by the costume by double negative. Which is an issue. Which is... This is an issue in and of itself, because there's the whole aspect of, like, well, when somebody's first time cosplay, you don't know where somebody's coming from. You don't know if it's somebody's first cosplay. So to get this BS mentality, like, oh my god, how dare they cosplay that costume and it sucks. Like, dude, it's their first time cosplaying. Get the stick out of your ass. It doesn't matter. So you just the cosplay by the physical costume, not the cosplayer. That's all you really need to say about the matter. And this can sum up the whole issue for, you know, racism, sexism in cosplay, weight, or people's physique, by weight. Like, it actually addresses all those issues without saying too much and without saying too little. You judge the costume by the physical costume. You don't judge it by the cosplayer. This addresses racism, sexism, cosplay, you know, people's physique and body weight, factoring that. You don't really need to say anything more than that. I keep dealing with white people who then say more than that. Like, I went to this one panel. It was at Anime Mid-Atlantic 2013. I think it was in June. So it was this year. It wasn't too long ago. It was like middle of summer. There's this one panel I went to. And the overall panel, it was decent. There's room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. It was a decent panel. And there's one guy who was talking about racism. He's a white guy talking about racism in cosplay. And he was going on a really good track. And he was making really good meshes. And he completely contradicted everything he said by wrapping it up with, well, if I were a judge for a cosplay contest, if two people cosplaying a character, and these two people being one white, one black, were cosplaying a character who was white, and they both had good costumes. Let's say the black person has the cosplay that the costume's a little bit better. They would vote in favor of the white cosplayer because they look, quote unquote, more like the character by virtue of being white. Now, if you're like me, this completely contradicts everything he just said by basically saying, well, at the end of the day, your race does factor into the matter of if it's a good cosplay or not. And all you have to do to avoid making this super racist statement is not have said that entirely. He should have just left it at, well, you don't judge the cosplay by the physical costume. I'm trying to see if I spelled this wrong. Whatever. You don't judge the costume by the person, you judge the costume by the costume itself. And I know this guy is a racist, because to me, when white people make this mistake, it isn't because I think they're racist, it's because I think they're making it's a racially insensitive statement, but to me, in my opinion, it's easy for a white person to accidentally overstep the boundary, or to overstep that very, very thin line into racially insensitive territory, or outright racist territory, because you just make that mistake. They had the best of intentions, but you know, road to hell is paved with good intentions. But it's such an easy mistake to make that's also easy to avoid. So really, this whole statement here is from a standpoint, and when you're speaking about the matter, or you have a panel or whatever, a video, all you have to say is this. You don't have to elucidate, you don't have to explain, that's all you need to say. You don't need to go beyond that. Because I know you're not racist, I know you're not trying to be racist, but you come across as a racist asshole when you try to add in this, when you try to extend on that, because usually it's saying things that don't need to be said. So to wrap up this whole issue, because this video is getting close to the 30-minute mark, white people experiencing racism cosplay is never going to be as devastating, or as it's not like white people have experience of being scared away from cosplay, because so many white people experience racism cosplay. There's too many stories about blacks, Indians, Latinos, etc., being people of color in general, being scared away from cosplay because they heard all these terrible things about racism within the community, and they just don't want to deal with it whatsoever. Or you have people within the community already who just want to avoid, who just got out of it because of all this crap happening. You're just like, they just basically throw their hands up and they're like, forget it, and they just get out of it entirely because they're sick of dealing with it. Like, a white person would never have that same experience. You just won't. You won't. I mean, you can BS me, you can challenge me, but you don't, you won't, you don't, it doesn't happen. So, your experiencing racism with cosplay as a white person is never going to be as bad as the person of color. And it's really, that's my main message. Again, it's a rant. Again, you can challenge me in the comments and crap, and like ask me to clarify what I mean, and I'll do it, no problem, within the follow-up video. But that's really what I get to, because I mean, racism in cosplay, of course, is an issue, but I also find it annoying when you have these white people acting like, oh, I don't see either A, it's not that big of a deal, because me as a white person, I experienced it that badly. It's like, well, you're white, of course it wasn't that bad for you, you're white. And it also gets on my nerves when you have these white people like, oh my god, yeah, it's so tragic, because I as a white person went through this, you know, experiencing racism in cosplay. It's like, dude, you're white, it's not that bad. It's never going to be that bad. It really doesn't matter what side of the fence you fall on with this, it's never that bad. But that's what I have to say about the matter. So, wrap this up. Again, my social network stuff. This is my WordPress blog, my Facebook page, main Twitter, Tumblr. Follow and like all these things. Like this video. Subscribe to this video. You know, join the Bitch Brigade today. Do it. And subscribe. Subscribe to this video. Like my videos. Comment. I really appreciate any kind of constructive feedback. And you know, thanks for watching my video. And bye!